We are catching up with our city leaders on today's Red Couch Rewind. I'm your host, Melissa Bruner. Welcome in. The Red Couch Rewind is where we recap some of those top interviews you've been seeing on Eye on Northeast Kansas, the TV show where the guests sit on the red couch. You can catch it live Monday through Friday, 4 o'clock Central Time, broadcasting from our WIBW TV studios in the capital of Kansas, the great city of Topeka. We also stream it for you live on WIBW.com, our WIBW mobile app, and of course, if you're catching us on Roku or one of those other streaming platforms, you'll find it there as well. So, as we mentioned, catching up with our local leaders. We have them join us once a month on the Red Couch, and they always have some great topics to dive into. Let's start with Topeka Mayor Spencer Duncan as he caught us up on the efforts to pursue affordable housing in the capital city. This is an issue you've been working on since before you became mayor, your time on the council. Before I ask you about that, though, since last you visited, we have sent the lawmakers home. Would you consider this a good or a bad session when it comes to city governments, local governments?
Very mixed. There were some initiatives that we liked that will be put into effect. Others, of course, didn't make it to the finish line. And then some things we really didn't like either got vetoed by the governor or didn't have enough votes. So we appreciate that when something you don't like doesn't happen. But we still have work to do now in the quote-unquote off-season. We will start engaging legislators immediately to talk about what we can bring back next session.
What is a plus side? What is one of those wins that we might see implemented?
Yeah, some of them were just the way that there was a housing bill, 418, that had started off as pretty problematic for cities. It's a perfect example of when they communicate with us, we were able to work with legislators. It allows some by-right housing, limited neighborhoods, but the point is it'll now be easier to build some single-family homes throughout the state, and so that's a big plus for everybody, for the state and for the cities.
Okay. Housing. We're talking about affordable housing. On the agenda this week, you had said we've got a lot of housing projects that the city council governing body is going to consider.
We do, and now a lot of it's incentive asks, and I think those are always tough because you want to balance the need for housing, which we are desperate for, particularly affordable housing, but what are the long-range costs that we give up as a city, i.e. the property taxes or any sales tax during the building of those. So that's what we balance every week. I tell people watch our meetings, and sometimes it looks a little boring, but it's a lot of money being moved either through developers or through the city, and we're always trying to find that balance.
Why is it a good investment? Because on the one hand, I can see others saying, well, you're not going to pay somebody to build my home and give me a break, so why is it an investment to pay builders to build these other homes?
Yeah, the good news is we don't pay them to build the homes, but yes, we give them a tax break if they build those homes. But I need to grow. We need to grow, right? That's what I was talking about. We have got to grow as a city because the only way we're going to have a larger tax base overall is with more people. And I want a tax system where a lot of people are paying a little bit, not where a little bit of people are paying a lot. And that's what we're driving towards now is that second scenario. So the more people we bring to this community, the more housing we have on all levels creates growth in Topeka, and growth is good.
What does affordable housing mean? Because I think sometimes I see these projects and then they say what the rents are, and I'm like, okay.
And you'll find we ask that question a lot at council meetings. One of the questions we ask is, what is your rent going to be? And while there's no rent control in Kansas by state law, so we don't want to go there, we certainly have a right to ask those questions and decide, okay, you deserve the incentive based on what you're going to build versus maybe not. The average that you always hear is 30% or less of a person's income. Now that should also include their utility bills. So if you kind of use that as a starting point threshold, never let it go bigger. Lower is always better. That at least gives us a baseline to work from.
This could lead into discussions on the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. This is an issue that's been personal for you, one that you've really been talking a lot about. The Topeka Jump organization had their big assembly last week, and they keep saying, so first of all, let's spend some money out of the trust fund. Right. Have we done that?
Yes, so the group, which we finally created, which is a board of mostly citizens and a few members of our staff, took an RFP, and they are now spending, I want to say it's about $800,000 of it to 3 different organizations who are now going to use it to either improve current housing that they have or build new housing. One of the programs I think will assist first-time home buyers in the LMI, lower income, buy homes. And so the first $800,000 of our $1.1 million in there is there. The second concern that Jump and most of our community has, including me, is there's no more money going in.
The first you give 3 grants and
I worked really hard. One of the things I definitely take credit for is working really hard to get the first $1 million in there, but we don't have a dedicated funding source. And so there has been a recommendation from that board to use a piece of sales tax that they'd like to see on the ballot, whether it's the end of this year or next year, and that would be dedicated. we'll have those conversations over the next few months as we go through our budget. If that's not the answer, then we need to have a conversation about, okay, well, what are the other possibilities?
And what are the other possibilities?
Well, that's a great question. Sometimes it's fees. Other cities have used like building and permit fees. Others have just simply said, well, we're going to create a line item in the budget, and so maybe that's a property tax mill levy. So those are some of the other options that have been put forward. There's also some federal grants, and I'm encouraging anyone out there listening who's in the industry who wants to donate money to this fund. We'll always take donations from the business community.
How long did it take to get to this point, though? Because that kind of goes back to the first question. We're rewarding our first 3 projects out of it?
So this is my 7th year being in government, because I was elected 6 years on the council and my first year as mayor. They passed the trust fund before I got there. And 2 years into my council term, I said, why do we have this? It's either time to get rid of it and be honest with the community, or actually do it, which is where I wanted to do. And so myself and a few others worked really hard for almost 4 years to get the board set up, to get some money in it. So it took way too long, but thankfully we were there, we have a structure, now we got to figure out money. Like with everything, money.
How is this different from the land bank program, and do we still have that?
Yeah, this money will be dedicated specifically to helping reinforce or building more housing, which is great. The land bank program, which is also geared towards that though, helps us get properties from, whether it's in private ownership that's distressed, or whether it's city-owned properties that we have that we're trying to get rid of, into the hands of developers at a very low rate, so they can cut that cost off the bottom, which makes it affordable for them to build homes.
A lot of moving pieces here and discussions that will continue. But again, when you talk about the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and giving these grants and awarding this assistance, on the one hand, you kind of think, well, if this is where the need is, why don't builders just build?
Right, because it's expensive. So for instance, if I've got an infill development and I'm in a neighborhood where the average home is valued at $150,000, but a new build today, basic flat new build home, is $175,000 to $185,000. What's the incentive to build if I can't turn around and make any kind of profit off that? And we have some great builders who are willing to cut their margins, but they still have to pay for the supplies. They still have to pay their employees. They've got to make a little something. So we have got to fill that gap if we want those affordable homes to be built in infill neighborhoods to help our community.
Very good explanation of what is happening, whether folks agree with it or not. That is the explanation of what's happening and why it is happening the way it is. Spencer Duncan, I appreciate that. Thank you so much, and have a good meeting tomorrow.
You too. Thank you.
Following up the mayor was Topeka City Manager Robert Perez. A lot of great initiatives are going on, and he told us about some of them. So many things going on around the capital city. Welcome to you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Let's start with the utility meetings, because the first one is Wednesday. What's going on with city utilities? And this is where you're talking about water, stormwater, and what other sorts of things?
Right. So we are this is the last year of our 3-year water rate cycle. And so every 3 years is the best practice to evaluate where you're at with your water rates and your infrastructure programs within that are funded through the utilities fees. And so that's where we're at right now. We basically want to share the information with the community as to where those dollars go. Basically show again what the services cost, whether it be going out to address a water main break or to replace our aging infrastructure, our water utilities infrastructure.
First of all, couple things. People hear this and they automatically think, oh, you're wanting to tell us how much you're going to raise our rates. But the flip side of that is what? We keep hearing the term aging infrastructure. How old is it really, and what sort of investment needs to be made?
So I will tell you that our current fee structure basically supports water utility line replacement, I believe, like every 100+ years. So I mean, when you start looking at the useful life of water infrastructure, I mean, those are things that we have to take into account.
The math isn't mathing? You mean the pipes aren't geared to last 100 years?
So what I'm saying is that, like, when you look at an actual replacement cycle, I mean, right now we're on track to be able to replace our water utilities, like our water lines, like every 100+ years. And so, I mean, concrete, depending upon its usage, depending upon the soils around it, I mean, if it lasts 100 years, that's great. But again, we do have some other pipes that are not just concrete. We still have some corrugated metal tin. We still have other plastic lines that are in the ground that we need to replace. And then on top of it too, we even talked about things like the lead water replacement program. So all those things are taken into account as we look at what our water rates need to look like for the next 3 years.
Okay. So I'm going to put the dates of those first couple meetings up here in just a little bit, but I want to talk about a couple other things as well, because one of them is an annual tradition, which is kind of fun, the Battle of the Badges blood drive, police versus fire.
Right.
How important is this, and why does the city like to take part in this every year?
Well, I think that there's always a blood shortage, right? And so anytime that the city can step up and help supply some of that need a demand, it's a good thing. It's always fun whenever you have competition involved in it, especially like when it's people getting stuck with needles. I mean, I could do it.
It doesn't sound fun, but it's so vital to do.
I'm starting to sweat right now just thinking about it, right? Like needles.
What are you going to give?
Again, I'm starting to sweat just thinking about it right now. But it's always great to watch our firefighters and our police officers go head to head to see who can actually collect the most.
Yep. You can donate, and when you donate, you get to vote, and then the winner gets bragging rights. So if you team police, team fire, which you're going to remain neutral. That's really what's going on here. So you're remaining neutral.
Oh
between the
yeah,
agencies.
one size red, one size blue.
That's right.
Yeah. So.
Related to police and fire, those National Night Out, and we're just getting started. This is typically in August, correct? How do neighborhoods find out about what it can take to get involved? Because you can get some money for your neighborhood to do something.
Right. Yeah, we have some informational sessions scheduled so that if individual neighborhoods want to sponsor a National Night Out event, we have a stipend that we provide. That's outside of the main event that we last year was our first time actually hosting at the.
You did it at the mall last year, didn't you? I think?
No, we did it actually at the right there by the hotel, the Ag Hall.
Okay, there you go. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
There have been some things that have kind of gone around. So,
right.
Are we going to do a main city event this year too?
Yeah, there'll be another. Yeah, and so again, starting the talks early, so that way we have continue to build on the momentum from last year, and make this the best event so far.
Details to come on that. You put out some information last week too on the program for bridging the digital divide. Is that who is qualifying for that, and why is this something that is important? People can get a free tablet if they qualify.
Yeah, that's correct. Typically, we look at our LMI residents that qualify. It's an income-based grant that we receive to actually fund these tablets. It's actually a continuation of a grant that we were provided, I believe it was last year, the year before, we actually gave out desktop devices. And so through the same grant, we're making these tablets available for our low to moderate income residents. As far as qualifications, again, income-based, and then also too, if a family has participated in the last event, they're not eligible for this one. But again, yeah, grant funded program, which I think is great as far as helping our LMI residents and children.
Low to moderate income. Everyone, I mean, so much is online nowadays.
Oh yeah.
You kind of need that access.
Oh, for sure. Again, whether it's online schooling or if it's things needed to be researched for medicine, telehealth, et cetera. Those devices are very important.
We have a few seconds left, so I can't get out of here without asking you.
Yeah.
June 14th has been said to be the date. Hotel Topeka sale will be finalized.
Yeah.
Is it going to happen?
So we are waiting to hear back from Endeavor Hotel Group. They are supposed to notify us of their intent to close this week. I know that one of the last sticking points was working with the county on an agreement on the Maynard Conference Center, and I just want to thank the Shawnee County Commission for their leadership in advance. Hopefully get that done and be ready maybe this time next month, be like, hey, we're under contract.
We are going to check back with you this week to see what the Endeavor tells you, but here are those utilities meetings. The first one is Wednesday at Hillcrest at 5:30. Then there's going to be a morning session Saturday at the library, and then next week, the 20th and 21st, meetings at Crestview and Garfield. So all around the city if you'd like to know about that. And then here is the information on the Battle of the Badges, noon to 6 on Monday, May 18th at the Holiday Building. You can register in advance, redcross.org or redcrossblood.org, but again, they'll take walk-ins as time allows is how that usually works. Thank you so much for getting us up to date on all of those things.
Yes, ma'am.
All the things going on. From the city to the county level, Commissioner Aaron Mays was our guest this month, updating Shawnee County's work. Very timely visit as well. A lot of the surrounding counties in Northeast Kansas and really across the nation, there's this discussion about AI and the data centers that are used to support that industry. So we asked him his thoughts on whether we'd see any of those in Shawnee County. Thank you so much for stopping in. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Heading into the weekend, lots of big things going on.
Lots of big things going on.
Well, let's talk about completions, because from the city standpoint, I was excited to drive over the Topeka Boulevard Bridge from south to north. You all have a big one on the county-wide scope of things with Auburn Road. That's back open and ready to go now.
Yeah, so last summer, if you remember, we had two big closures for Shawnee County Public Works. It was Northwest 46th Street and then also Southwest Auburn Road at 29th Street, where the new Washburn Rural Middle School North went in. And so we had to phase the project. Both of those are now open under construction. Still up north, we're still working, but it's you can still go through. And then the Auburn Road, we finally got it opened up a month and a half early just last week.
So drivers are cheering as they go around the roundabout.
That's what everybody tells me. I actually made a special trip out there to drive through it just to check it out. And yes, it looks very nice. But you can tell there's still a little bit more work to do, but we're excited to have that open again.
Always good news. There is a little bit of future planning that's been going on and has been in the headlines really everywhere. So I'm interested in your perspective on this. We know Riley County, Pottawatomie County, both have been holding meetings studying what to do about data center proposals. Sedgwick County put a moratorium on development of data centers for now. Is this something Shawnee County is discussing, and to what extent have you been looking at what may or may not happen around here?
So we don't have any data centers on the hook right now, so to speak.
No one's submitted any applications.
Yeah, nothing. I mean, there's been talk. We've had interest from data centers for a while now, and a lot of that is still confidential. It goes through the Greater Topeka Partnership and Go Topeka. But, it's a national conversation. So I was at the National Association of Counties Conference in D.C. Just in February. And I would say half of the programming at the conference was about data centers because they are expanding so rapidly right now. And a lot of it is just fear of the unknown, I think, right now, because we're not exactly sure how to work with them. There's something that we've never seen before. And so we're trying to learn from what's happened in other communities and replicate the good things and avoid the bad things. The technology is changing very rapidly. So for so long you were worried about the water consumption. In Kansas, water consumption is a huge deal for us. And so, that was a big concern. Well, now the water consumption is much lower than it used to be, but they still use a ton of electricity. And so anything that would have to happen here is kind of up to Evergy because they're the ones that have to sell them the power to keep the place operational. And if they don't have the capacity to do it, they're not going to allow them to do it.
Can something like that, though, drive any decisions at the county level in terms of being able to set restrictions on them? And will you go through a public hearing? Are you going to be proactive with a public hearing process on something like this, much like you just had the moratorium on the solar and wind projects so that you could hold public hearings, develop guidance and policy, and now that is all in place? Do you plan to be more proactive when it comes to the data centers question?
So maybe a little bit, but I think that with these data centers, the size of these things is so large that I don't think that a blanket policy is going to work for this. I think it needs to be kind of a case-by-case basis probably. And of course, that would be the same process that we would use for any large project where there has to be public input because it requires new zoning and things like that. And there are good things about data centers too. These projects, some of them are up to $1 billion in value, and that is a property tax paying property. So
if you don't give them an exemption,
we would not give an exemption. We've already sort of said that to Go Topeka, or at least I have, that I don't anticipate giving them any kind of tax exemptions because right now, property tax is probably the number one issue that we hear about. And the best way to lower property taxes for you and me is to find someone else to pay those property taxes. And when you have a hyperscale data center in the market, they're going to pay a lot of taxes on $1 billion facility that would essentially, cut taxes for everyone else.
So stay tuned on that one.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a fun one though. The Gage Park Carousel. We were out there earlier this week. We have video of the site preparation being done to build a new building around the carousel. So carousel's closed this summer, is that correct? What's the timetable for this?
So the carousel is going to take about a year to get done. There's some site work going on right now, but that building was built in 1989. And it's just looking a little rough. And then, now we have the Gage Park Improvement Authority, which has a new source of revenue for Gage Park. And so we're doing a lot of projects. The Playland will be opening up soon with the new roller slides, by the way. And then the Gage Park Carousel, like I said, going to be closed. The carousel itself will remain the same, but the building around it will change. And we're actually putting in a second train stop over there. So the mini train is closed for a couple weeks while we move the tracks to the new location. We want to make sure we do that right, and so closing it for just a few weeks is probably the best way to do that. And then once we get that back open, the construction on the carousel remains going while the train will be operational.
Well, our video vault this week looked back at the late 80s when that building and that facility with the carousel in the park was first dedicated. So go online if you want to see that, but we will look forward to a brand new building protecting that carousel for the next generation.
And there is some restoration happening on the carousel horses
cool.
and animals and things that are on there
you
as well.
You can see what they did in the 80s in
Yeah.
the video vault as well. Aaron, thanks so much. Those discussions, of course, will be following not just around Topeka and Shawnee County, but around Northeast Kansas. And we've been seeing some talks in the Kansas City area as well. Before we wrap up this segment on the Red Couch Rewind, we had a great announcement for you over the past couple of weeks. Here at WIBW TV, we are teaming up with Washburn University, as well as the University of Kansas Health System St. Francis campus in Topeka, to bring a new scholarship program to really fill that gap, help some of our future nurses afford the education that it takes to get them into our healthcare system. So we welcomed the Dean of the Washburn University School of Nursing, Dr. Crystal Stevens, along with the Director of Nursing over at St. Francis, Adam Meyer, to tell us why this is so needed. Welcome to you both.
Hello.
Thank you.
And this is very fun because we were so excited to announce this program. First of all, graduates, how many nursing grads do you have this year?
We have 68 undergraduate nursing students, and we have several DNP students as well. So yeah, we have quite a few graduates.
Is that a large class?
That is a large class.
Really?
It's a larger class that we've had really post-COVID. It's one of our biggest classes we've had. So we're excited to have so many students and so many nurses going out to join the workforce.
How exciting is that for you to hear?
It's really exciting, particularly since Washburn's such an incredible partner for us. We get that opportunity to take those nursing students and transition them into practice as full-time professional nurses. So,
how great is the need that you see?
you know, we have a huge need for nurses, particularly in the state of Kansas. This is one of the areas that we as an organization want to continue to invest in removing those barriers to help nursing students transition into the profession of nursing.
When you talk to your students, Dr. Stevens, how much of a barrier is the financial aspect of going to school and getting this degree?
Yeah, it's huge. There's such an expense to not just the education piece, but then all the extra things that you need for nursing, the scrubs, the stethoscope, all the different things that are needed. So yeah, it is huge. And you know, our students are working, they're raising families, and they're trying to get their nursing degree. So yes, it is huge.
So what are we doing to address this? I don't know, Adam, if you want to talk about what's going on.
Absolutely. So in this partnership, we have a $20,000 in funding for 4 students, $5,000 each. And this is really exciting because this is an investment not only in nursing but in our community here with the Washburn partnership to help break down those barriers to allow students to get through nursing school. So we are really excited about this partnership and this scholarship that we've been able to come to the table with.
And this is something for your students, right?
Yes.
Yes. So 4 students will get a $5,000 scholarship, which is it's so exciting, not just the financial piece of it, but just seeing that our local hospitals are investing in them and in their education. You know, a lot of our students are Topeka based, but even the ones that are from outside of Topeka, it's just so great for them to see how much their community really cares about them and their education.
And if I'm recalling correctly, this is going to be something that they apply for when they're enrolled in fall, and then we're going to hand them out in spring?
In the spring,
In the
yes,
spring,
yes.
So if you're a Washburn nursing student, or if you're thinking about becoming a Washburn student, stay tuned there.
Yes, so Washburn Nursing, they'll be able to find the application online. It's already there and ready to go.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to hear about that. How much do you try to make sure that the programs and what you're teaching in nursing is reflecting what folks like Adam are looking for at St. Francis?
Oh, we're always looking at that. We have advisory councils to talk to the local healthcare facilities, trying to figure out, you know, are our students coming out? Are they prepared? What do they need? What are the gaps? And we're just always trying. We have faculty that are engaged in faculty practice, so they know what's going on in the healthcare realm. And so, yeah, we're always trying to make sure we're meeting the needs.
And of course, this was announced at the nurses recognition that you had, Adam, over at St. Francis. So what have you been doing? It is National Nurses Week. So what have you been doing to make your nurses feel special?
Yeah, so and on top of the gifts that we hand out for Nurses Week, we partner with Washburn. We do educational opportunities. We've been doing a lot of food, a lot of celebration.
A lot of food.
A lot of food, that's right. We did recognize recognize our nurses this past week with our Nursing Excellence Awards. So those are nurses that have really gone above and beyond in the nursing profession at St. Francis for exceptional patient care, family care, teaching, mentoring. We recognize them in a big celebration with certificates, and they also get a financial stipend as part of that recognition.
Which is always awesome. And the
Yes.
students also have been getting a little love, a little extra support.
Oh yes, we've been trying to give them a little extra love, especially this week. It's not only Nurses Week, but Finals Week.
Oh, yeah.
So making sure they have snacks and keep them fueled. And then also trying to reach back out to our alumni. So having tables at the local hospitals to try and, give a little gift to our alumni. So
Well,
yes.
It's nice to see the nurses supported because they certainly do a lot of work. Thank you so much for allowing us to partner with you to encourage the next generation
Yes,
of
thank
nurses,
you.
as we say. And again, go to the Washburn School of Nursing webpage. If you are going to be a Washburn student this fall in the nursing program, you could get one of these scholarships. Thank you both so very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
Be watching for those scholarship awards coming up this fall. Again, this fall is when people will apply. They will be selected, and then they will apply to the spring semester at Washburn University in Topeka for those who are pursuing a nursing career, something to keep an eye out for. We are now going to be talking about some VIPs along with some VIP issues facing our community when the Red Couch Rewind returns. Welcome back into the Red Couch Rewind. Glad to have you along with us. Sunday, May 17th, marked a very important anniversary, really in our nation's history and in the story of civil rights in our country. The Brown versus Board of Education U.S. Supreme Court decision was handed down 72 years ago. This week, of course, it is Topeka, the namesake in that case, Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka Public Schools. There was a great event to honor and mark that anniversary. The keynote speaker was Ben Crump. He is a social activist and a civil rights attorney. Before he spoke in Topeka, I had a chance to talk to him one-on-one. Here's a bit of that conversation.
I mean, what happened in Topeka, Kansas 72 years ago was landmark. A lot of times we use that, I think, too often, but with Brown versus the Board of Education, Thurgood Marshall, and the NAACP generational fight for equality that all traces back to Topeka, Kansas, is profound on every level.
So when you think about what civil rights looks like today, it's maybe not as overt as back then when there were clear separations of facilities and programs and things. What happens today?
Well, I think it's more challenging to achieve equality today in America because of what I have termed the intellectual justifications of discrimination. The fact that you see the attack on so many things in America that represented progress to marginalized people in America, especially minorities. This fight to make the Declaration of Independence real for all Americans, that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equally, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that amongst them are life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. Now more than ever, we have to fight to make that real so our children will have an equal opportunity at achieving the American dream, whether they're black, white, brown, or red. The fight is for all of our children to have an equal opportunity at achieving the American dream.
Where do you see the gaps? Where is this not happening that people should really kind of open their eyes and pay attention to?
Oh my God. When you think about how there are gut and voting rights, where it is going to be more difficult for Americans to exercise their most fundamental constitutional right, and that is the right to vote, to be able to have a democracy where we get to pick the leaders. And that is so critically important for democracy's sake. It should not be that state legislators get to select the voters. No, the voters should get to select the state legislators. That's fundamental democracy. And when you think about Brown versus the Board of Education, we must think about that it stood for the proposition that equality was more than just formal laws. It stood for this proposition that the law should be used as an instrument for good, not as a weapon for oppression. And we must remember what Martin Luther King said in his letter from the Birmingham jail, that just because they tell us it's legal, that doesn't make it right. He said we must remember that everything Hitler did to the Jews in Germany, they said was legal. But Dr. King said, but that didn't make it right. He said we must remember that they said slavery was legal. But he said we must remember that didn't make it right. He said we must remember that they said segregation was legal. But he said, but that didn't make it right. And he said we must remember everything they did to that little boy in Money, Mississippi, named Emmett Till. They tried to tell us it was legal, but that did not make it right. And so we must challenge things that they say are legal, because legality does not always equate to morality.
How can we all do that in our own lives? Not all of us are attorneys. Not all of us are well versed in the law to know what it takes to maybe file a lawsuit. So if we have to take this to everybody in their everyday life, no matter the color of their skin or their background or ethnicity, how do we do that every single day?
Yeah, and that's such a great question, Melissa, because again, as Dr. King said, all of us have a role to play in this struggle for equality and justice for all. And even if you're not a civil rights lawyer or a civil rights leader, there are things you can do, whether it's on your job or in your community or in your church, to say that we can help make a better world, a better America for all of our children. That's what I believe was so symbolic, even 72 years later, about what started in Topeka, Kansas, that led to Brown versus the Board of Education. It is about trying to build a better world, a better America for all of our children. So whether it's you mentoring, whether you volunteering, whether you contributing to the Brown versus Board Association there in Topeka, whether you're trying to help educate young people on things that they might not learn in school, about fairness, about equality, about morality. It's these things that we all can do to make a difference, to say that we're all God's children.
Great conversation with Ben Crump. Always interesting to hear his perspective. An organization that got started in Topeka many years ago is reinventing itself and ramping up its efforts to support veterans. The Military Veteran Project. Melissa Jarboe founded it. She has some activities coming up, and she's bringing the focus back to veterans here in Kansas. We caught up with her. Welcome to you. It's been a while.
It has.
That's because you've been all over the place. So let's start from the beginning. For those who don't recall, it's been, 15 years?
It has.
Wow. So what started the Military Veteran Project?
15 years ago, my husband, Staff Sergeant Jamie Jarboe, was on his third deployment in Afghanistan when he was shot by a sniper. And we spent the last 11 months of his life in 7 different hospitals trying to save his life. But when we returned home to Topeka, he passed away on March 21st, 2012.
But from that, you decided to continue his mission of taking care of his guys, the men and women who serve.
We did.
How did that mission first take shape? What did you do to start?
I ran across the entire country trying to help everybody who needed help, and I tried to answer the call. We started as the Jamie Jarboe Foundation, later created the Military Veteran Project, been based here in Topeka for the past 15 years, and now we're moving forward with restructuring and coming back home to Kansas from national work.
So what is the one main thing that the Military Veteran Project is going to focus on now?
we're still focusing on suicide prevention for our military. And what that looks like now is our education, training, and community impact for military suicide prevention. So we're going to get out in the community and we're going to create change right here in Topeka, Wichita, and Kansas City, in our home state of Kansas.
How big of an issue does this remain? We used to always hear the 22 a day. Are we still seeing those big numbers?
We are. We're seeing one veteran every 65 minutes loses their life. But what we're also seeing is it rippling into the family members. Not only that, that statistic is only based on the Veterans Administration's number of who they have registered. So realistically, that number could be significantly higher. We really don't know because we don't have the proper data.
What is the gap and what can we do to reach veterans and their families?
What we're looking at now is we're looking at our new education and training program. We have the Guardian Network. The Guardian Network will go out into businesses, organizations to educate civilians, community members on what to look for if they have a veteran coworker, if they have a friend or a family and they want to assist. We also have the mission reintegration, where we know our military is trained to go to war, but it's time that we train them to come home. And that's where the Military Veteran Project steps in.
What are the things that happen when someone returns home? What can make that transition a challenge that then leads to these risks for suicide, or if not suicide, at the very least, just complications in adjusting and making a living and being productive?
From what I've read on research and heard from doctors, there can be a slew of different variety of issues or concerns. They're looking at heightened stress in a military combat situation, sleep deprivation, malnourishment, so many different triggers can occur in that process. And so what we're looking at is when they come home from war is being able to assist them and get them transitioned back in and settle their bodies down and just help them learn how to face the new normal.
I was going to say, because to some extent this involves educating the veterans themselves. I remember a gentleman that came on our Hear Me, See Me podcast, and he said he didn't realize there was like a loud bang when he was driving his grandkids in the car one day, and he had this reaction. And it took him a minute to realize why he was having that reaction.
Yeah, their nervous system. I mean, it's repeat and repeat, right? You go through a process, you see it, and all of a sudden you hear it, and now your body goes through it again. And so it's just training that nervous system how to come home. And we have wonderful doctors at our civilian facilities, our veterans administrations that are going to help with this. And then the Military Veteran Project will help educate as we continue to move forward.
We are not far from Memorial Day as well, and that's
not.
part of MVP's efforts as well to make sure we honor and remember. You have the flags. What is going to be happening with those?
So this next Thursday, not tomorrow, but a week from Thursday, we're going to be at Mount Hope at 17th and Fairlawn from 10 to 2, and we're welcoming the community. We have our friends Blue Cross Blue Shield coming out, American Legion Auxiliary members, and many community members. And we're going to have 700 to 900 flags for people to come out and set a flag down at a fallen service members. So we have the flags for the fallen, and then I'm going to give this to you. So we're going to gift you a bouquet of flags today
thank
instead
you.
of flowers. And you're more than welcome to pass one flag out to
Absolutely.
someone to help move that flags forward.
Well, I will definitely do this. If people want to connect with Military Veteran Project, because it's important for families, for veterans who are with us. It is important for families like yours, the Gold Star families who've lost a loved one. How do we connect with Military Veteran Project?
We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. Our website is militaryveteranproject.org, or they can contact our office.
And then again, you're going to be at Mount Hope when?
17th and Fairlawn, Thursday, the 21st of May, the Thursday before Memorial Day.
So not tomorrow, a week from
tomorrow. From tomorrow, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Just look for the red, white, and blue, and we'll be there.
Yeah, Memorial Day was Decoration Day back in the day to start, and so we will assist with that with Military Veteran Project. Melissa, thank you so very much. Good to see you, good to catch up, and good to know Military Veteran Project is still there for all of those who serve. Appreciate you. Memorial Day is right around the corner, and the Military Veteran Project will be here to support our area vets and vets across the state. A new exhibit is going to be around the capital city this summer. The Topeka Zoo is bringing it to town, but this exhibit is going to go way beyond the Topeka Zoo to several areas of the capital city. It is called Washed Ashore. Dennis Dinwiddie from the zoo told us how it really gets into the conservation mission of the zoo. You are, after all, the Topeka Zoo and in little tiny type and Conservation Center. This plays right into that.
It does. It's an important part of the conservation message that we have year-round. But this is the Washed Ashore Art for the Sea exhibit. And of course, people always ask, so why are you doing an art for the sea, you know, the global ocean? Well, it's because we're always trying to raise awareness that even in the middle of the country, so far from the nearest saltwater shoreline, we still make decisions here that impact on the health of the world ocean. And one of those is that we're wanting to reduce plastic usage, especially single-use plastics. And so this exhibit coming is from Washed Ashore, the organization called Washed Ashore, who take plastic that has washed ashore on our coastlines, and they turn it into big, beautiful sculptures of marine creatures, ocean creatures, and then those exhibits go out around the nation and internationally also. And so we have 6 of those pieces coming to Topeka starting next week.
And we've got a couple of photos that show how these kind of come together, some of the items, and so we can just kind of scroll through those couple photos that you sent. So it truly is like the plastic bottles, the other things that end up in the waterways. How big are these sculptures?
Where they're everything from the jelly blooms like you see right there. That one will be at Noto. And then we have 2 pieces that will be at the Topeka Zoo that are just only a few inches shy of 14 feet long, almost 8 feet wide, about 7 feet tall. They're big. And then we also have pieces, of course, at the Topeka Shawnee County Public Library, at Washburn University, at the Children's Discovery Center. So it truly is a community exhibit where we have 4 more pieces out all around the community. And you know, one of the beauties of this is that you can go to the website of any one of those 5 organizations and find out where all the pieces are and the messages that go with each of them.
So the shapes that they form, when you say like a 14-foot sculpture, of what?
One of ours, for example, is a great white shark. And when you look at it, you see a great white shark and it cues it immediately. That's a great white shark because they've done such a great job of taking just ocean trash, just plastic off the beaches, and turning it into this great white shark. And then the corresponding message about how this had to be made with plastic that had washed ashore because the plastic was out there in the first place and it could have come from anywhere because you know, for example, we have a 153-mile long Kansas River, empties into the Missouri, empties into Mississippi from that, and then out to the global ocean. So when trash hits the ground, it could go anywhere.
Well, and just think about, too, we do have marine life in the Kansas River, and we do have marine life in our lakes. How does the trash, even in there, impact that ecosystem?
You know, when trash, especially plastic trash, because it takes so long to start breaking down and it never completely goes away. It's with us forever. Even when it breaks down to almost microscopic, it's still there and it's still impacting on life in the waterways and life that depend on the waterways. So plastic trash is something that stays with us forever. And when you drop it here, it could end up 1,000 miles away, and it is impacting on life all the way from point A to point B and all points in between.
And even just think of those things. I mean, I think about, you know, sometimes we see animals, birds and fish that get caught in like those plastic rings that somehow they get their heads stuck in different things, and that's all stuff that blew from somewhere.
Exactly. So, once it hits the ground, there's just an enormous watershed for the Kansas River. You know, anything that hits our ground could end up going through a storm sewer. The storm drains, over 5,000 of those in Topeka, and those go directly to the Kansas River, untreated and unfiltered. So.
And real quick, there is a student piece of art that's going to be that's going to be unveiled next week as well. Did they use trash for theirs also?
They did, plastic trash. And so 501 middle schools and I think elementary schools got together and made a beautiful sculpture from single-use plastic trash also. It'll be on exhibit at Washburn University, as will also the Washed Ashore piece.
I will put all of those locations on WIBW.com. The Washed Ashore exhibit turns up in Topeka on Monday, May 18th, and you'll be able to find those sculptures all around town through September 13th. Go find them and learn a thing or two. TopekaZoo.org/washed-ashore if you'd like to learn more. Dennis, appreciate you. Thank you for
Melissa.
all you do. The sculptures are being unveiled in events all this week around the capital city. You can find the coverage on WIBW.com, and you have all summer to go and make a tour of town, as it were, and see all of those sculptures, including how the kids are getting involved. I think that's a really cool part of this exhibit. You can see the videos from these guests and all of the guests on our Eye on Northeast Kansas TV show when you head to WIBW.com. We have a special section just for the Eye on Northeast Kansas clips. You can find that special section on our digital platforms as well, the Rokus, the YouTubes, all of those places. And if you want to see our Red Couch selfies for a little behind the scenes look, you can go to my Facebook page, WIBW Melissa Bruner. Thanks for being along with us. Until next time, we'll see you on the Red Couch.